How are you? How are you?
I am awesome. You know you're always going to be the NTT guy, right?
On the who?
The NTT guy. I used
Oh,
to
okay,
work
gotcha.
with Brian when it was NTT, National Tech Team,
Exactly. Way back in the day. See, we go way
way,
back
way
like
back in the day.
rocking chairs.
Amen.
Cool. So thank you for joining Point of Blue. I appreciate it. And you know what? It's Friday,
It is.
and
Whoop,
you
whoop.
happen to be my very first guest.
Thank you. I am honored.
All
I
right.
am so honored. Thank you for having me. This is thebomb.com, sir.
Thank you. Amidst all this crazy stuff that's going on.
I missed. Yes. Yes, absolutely.
So, Andrea, tell us a little bit about you. I didn't get a chance to pull up everything. I was just like maybe 7 minutes out of the shower, running around like I was trying to catch a plane or something like that. I'm almost late for my own interview. So,
um
your background. So, what are you? You are. I know it's Dr. Andrea, but what kind of a doctor are you?
I am a certified naturopathic doctor, and a lot of people don't know what naturopathy is. So,
I don't
naturopath,
either. I know a little bit, but just tell me.
okay. Naturopathy is the science of using natural herbal remedies and plant-based whole food nutrition to help people address their health conditions. So, as a certified naturopath, it's my responsibility to make sure that we use the right herbal regimen and we use the right combination of nutrients from plant-based foods to help the body heal itself. And that's traditionally what a naturopath does.
Okay. Now, how long have you been doing this?
I've been certified since 2014.
Okay.
So I've been doing this for 6 years. I have a nice client base here based in Detroit. And I also have a certification in herbal science as well. So,
Now,
herbal
herbal
science,
science. Go ahead. You're going to explain.
yeah, herbal science is the study of herbs and how they work with human physiology. So it's important that I know the type of herbs that work with the human body, specifically working with non-toxic herbs, herbs that don't have side effects to them, because there are herbs in nature that can do harm if not used properly or if used in excess. So it's really important as someone that has studied herbal science to know the right combination and the appropriate dosages as well.
Herbal science. I'm going to write these terms down so I can do some Googling when I'm done here. Okay.
Okay.
Herbal science. So, what led you down this whole naturopathic herbal science anyway, to begin with?
Well, I was having my own personal health challenges. When we worked together at National Tech Team, I was having issues with bronchitis, tonsillitis, constipation, yeast infections, hay fever, sinusitis. I mean, all of those issues were mine. And I thought that if I went to the doctor and the doctor prescribed me a pill, I could take care of everything and I'd be done. And what changed my perspective about health was a profound statement that she made, which was she said, Andrea, you have a high fat, low fiber diet. If you continue eating that way, your health conditions are only going to get worse as you get older. And when I tell you that statement struck a chord, it really struck a chord. So I made a promise to myself that I would change my life so that I could be healthy, because be so I didn't want to be like so many of my relatives that I had seen that had passed from cancer and heart disease. These two health conditions run rampant in my family, and I didn't want to be another statistic. So I made a commitment and I was convicted to change my life.
Now, she said high fat. I mean, I remember you back in the day, you were nowhere near fat. You've never been fat, as far as I've known. So, were you surprised when she was saying high fat in terms of the words themselves, high fat? I mean, you were a fairly thin person.
Yeah, absolutely. What is meant by that, now that I've done this study, is there's fat that you can sit out in room temperature that does not get solid. That's the type of fat that you want to eat. The fat that sits out in room temperature that gets solid, that's the fat that you don't want to eat. And the reason that's important to know is because the fat that sits at room temperature that does not get solid, that's the fat that goes through the blood very easily. It doesn't stick. It doesn't make your blood platelets sticky to have them stick to themselves, which that's actually what causes blockages in arteries. When you have what's called saturated fat, which is the fat that gets solid at room temperature, that fat is not good for you. It can cause what's known as sticky platelet syndrome in the blood. The blood platelets stick together. They stick to the walls of the arteries, making it difficult for blood to pass through the way that it should. And that's really what causes arterial damage and heart disease. So it's really important to make sure that you have fats in your eating habits that easily pass through the blood and actually provide nutrients to the blood versus causing the platelets to stick together to cause arterial damage or artery damage.
Wow. So when the doctor told you that, I mean, obviously, I don't think you look for it as a new profession. That's obviously you probably took action as to what she was saying. So did you immediately follow suit on your dietary changes?
I did actually, because I got scared, to be honest with you, when she said that to me. And I was what, in my mid to late 20s at that point. Already had started my family and I was married, and I was scared. There was this image of me not being here for now my two grandbabies, right? So I took her very seriously. And the only thing that I can tell you that made me take her so seriously was spirit was on me that this was a change that I needed to make. So that night, as a matter of fact, I went to Burger King. I got a Whopper with cheese, a
Okay.
double Whopper with cheese, right? French fries, apple pie, and a Coke. And that was my proverbial last supper.
Yeah, farewell to the fat.
It was. And I haven't had a Whopper in over 20 years. I've had the Impossible Burger, but not the Whopper.
Okay.
So, so that was at that time. I not only made changes though in my eating habits, and we'll talk about holistic health and why that term is so prevalent in what I do. I also decided that I didn't like my life.
Okay.
Not only did I need to change my eating habits, but I needed to change my life. And in order for my health to change, my life needed to change. So I changed my eating habits. I changed the products that I put on my body. I changed the products that I put in my body. I decided to wear my hair natural. I made these big, huge, drastic changes within 3 months of getting that information from the doctor. And I've been on that path ever since then. And that was back in 1998.
That was a while ago. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So did you ever fall off the wagon at any point during that time?
By fall off the wagon, I never went back to fast food.
Okay. So no more.
Yeah, I never, no more Whoppers, no more McDonald's, none of that.
Right.
Now, I have added back into my eating habits fish, lamb, ground turkey, and dairy. Specifically cheese and eggs.
Okay.
But I do raw cheese, and that's cheese that hasn't been pasteurized and has not been pasteurized. Yes. And I do and I do the organic cage-free eggs. Making sure I have eggs maybe once, twice a week. Sometimes I get carried away and then I feel it, so I back up off it.
So are those eggs actually raised in a cage?
No. The hens are allowed to roam free on the farm.
It's a joke, Andrea.
But okay, my bad.
So
See, this is the point where I need not to take everything seriously. But I got you.
Because I haven't seen a cage full of eggs yet, so I was just kind of wondering.
I did say caged eggs, didn't I? My bad.
Once we go back and rewind it, I'll see. I might have just mixed us both up. But anyway, so you started incorporating some dairy back in, but the dairy that you've incorporated has been non. Come on.
Not pasteurized in terms of the cheese, because I stopped drinking milk too, because I was drinking milk heavily because I grew up on milk, but I stopped drinking milk. I started doing organic everything,
Okay.
making sure that there were no hormones, antibiotics, steroids, or any of those things, added preservatives, added flavors, none of those things in any of the food that I ate. Now, falling off the wagon for me is, some organic Oreo cookies or, the organic M&Ms, So when I say organic everything, I mean even the junk food is organic. So,
Well,
yeah.
not too bad, not too bad. So after you stop eating the bad food, eat the good. How long did it take you to see improvements? Did some of your ailments start to disappear or go away?
Oh, absolutely. I would say within the first 6 months of me changing my eating habits,
Okay.
I had that first summer, no hay fever, no hay fever, no sinus
How long have
issues.
you suffered with hay fever before?
My life. The first year, no hay fever, no sinusitis. That next year, which was 1999, absolutely no bronchitis and no tonsillitis, which was amazing to me because I was known to get tonsillitis or bronchitis at least once every year or every other year.
Right.
And so the following years after that, no bronchitis, no tonsillitis. My bowels were more regular, no more issues with constipation. Um, and I was finding that even my skin, I had acne too. So my skin started clearing up. I started having less acne breakouts. And then I also noticed it was easier for me to manage my stress too. Being a mom of a starting lineup, I have five.
Right,
um,
right.
yeah, it was easier for me to handle the stress of being a mom, the stress of being a wife, and the stress of running a household and working full time and all that. So, yeah, changing my eating habits changed a lot in my life.
Okay, so make it resonate with me a little bit. In terms of the food that you were eating, what kind of foods were you eating back then that caused a lot of this? I'm pretty sure I'm probably eating a lot of them today that you got rid of years ago. But let's see if we can identify those specifically. Pizza,
Well, the first thing I started was I gave up pork and beef. So to this day, I still don't eat pork and beef. And that's a real big thing when you are a black person, your
standard
ribs.
American diet.
Yeah, and your soul food is, most of the dishes are with pork and beef. So when I gave up pork and beef, I basically lost my black card, right? And
You mean
I
you stop eating hamburger meat?
Yep, I sure did. Yep, I stopped eating hamburger meat. And if people were to do their research, which I encourage everyone to do, if you were to find out how corporate America manufactures the meat, specifically pork, beef, and chicken, um, it most people would be like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna back up off that. It's and we really should be eating under our own fig tree anyway. And what does that mean? We really should be eating the foods that come out of our state, because we have an atmosphere, right? We're not talking the earth's atmosphere, but our own area where we have been born and raised, where we live. This area in Michigan, the soil is a specific way, the air is a specific way, our environment in Michigan is a specific way. So when you live here day in, day out, you're acclimated to Michigan's climate, you're acclimated to the food, the soil the food comes from, and all of that. So we really should be eating foods that are from Michigan anyway. And if you're going to eat meat, some meat I do still eat, like I mentioned, you do want to get it clean, no hormones, no steroids, no antibiotics, and you do want to get it from Michigan. because you're from Michigan and your atmosphere and where you've grown up, and all of this is from Michigan, and you want to eat under your own fig tree. And what that does also too is that cuts down on the allergies that one may have as well. Um, when you are eating honey from Michigan, when you're eating meat from Michigan, your fruits from Michigan, your body doesn't have a tendency to want to react adversely to foods that aren't from Michigan. You cut down on your allergies that way.
If
Um,
I was doing something like that, if I wanted to buy, how can I guarantee that my food is going to be Michigan grown or locally grown? How do you find your locally grown meat or food?
That's an awesome question. In my research, what I've done is I've actually gone to Eastern Market. When Eastern Market does open back up, where we've got the outdoor markets again, all of the farmers there are going to identify themselves, and they're going to let you know where in Michigan that they're from, because most of the farmers that are there are Michigan farmers. And they're also going to let, if you ask them, they'll let you know how they grow their food. They let you know how they tend to their crops, and they'll also let you know what they feed their animals, in the processing of their meat. So it's good to go to Eastern Market, because that's where you're going to find all your Michigan grown foods is Eastern Market. That's one of the best sources. And then, of course, as you know, you can always Google it.
Right. And I actually forgot about the Eastern Market. It's been so, I think the last time I might have been there as a customer might have been with my grandmother, like
Oh, wow.
years ago. And I actually ride my bike downtown a lot. So I've ridden past there, but I've never gone there as a customer. So when you mentioned Eastern Market, I was just like, oh, shit. I forgot about them altogether. So Eastern Market. And when I'm there or when they do open back up, you mentioned as far as like you can find out how they feed their meat. Is there any, how they feed their livestock or whatever? Is there anything that we should be looking for in terms of the meat that we eat, what it eats?
Absolutely. You want to make sure that it eats what it's supposed to eat. For instance, cows aren't supposed to eat corn. Um, and the reason cows aren't supposed to eat corn is because their digestive system just can't handle it, can't break it down. Cows are supposed to eat grass, period. That's it.
Okay.
They're supposed to eat grass. So, if you're going to eat pork, no, you shouldn't feed the pig anything simply because it's a pig. Pigs
Right.
shouldn't be eating anything. Pigs also should be eating vegetables. And they shouldn't be eating some of the ungodly stuff I've heard they feed pigs.
Right.
If you're going to eat pork.
Yes,
And
last night, actually.
yeah, so you want to make sure that, and that goes for your lamb, your fish, your turkey. It goes for all. The animals should be fed what they're supposed to eat, which is good for their digestive system, because what they eat goes into you, which is
Right.
why you want to make sure your meat is clean.
So you're talking about the food that they feed the pigs, the corn. I guess things that are unnatural from this, from their environment. But along with that, they get the antibiotics. They get all the other kind of stuff as well, right? They whatever they're non-organic. I believe they feed them the corn stuff, and then they get the all the chemicals and stuff along the way. So once we cook that meat, we in turn take in all the I guess everything biologically that that animal consumed or whatever was ingested into it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I know that's a lot of reasons why people, for those that have decided to eat a specific way, they don't eat animals, because they don't want to harm the animal, and plus they don't want to be bothered with that. And I understand that, and I respect it. Um, you also, for those that do still eat meat like myself, though, those are some very, very big considerations. And in addition to that, you want to make sure that 85% of what you eat is plant-based, and 15% is the rest of it.
Okay.
So you want to make sure at least 2 to 3 times out of the week you got meat on your plate, but the rest of the time should be plant-based. And this is what I do my best to adhere to. Now, I do fall off the wagon on that, especially in the wintertime. Sometimes there may be a week or two in there where I've had my fair share of fish and lamb or ground turkey. But for the most part, I do my best to have 85% of my eating habits are plant-based, and then the rest are animal.
If you do happen to eat some animal, is there a preference in terms? fair, baked over fried? Does it matter if it's fried? Like the pork chops that I had last night that were so damn good, actually. I used peanut oil and all that stuff. But and I understand at some particular point, I do know that eating meat is not good for us. I understand that, but I'm going to fall in line and play my human program to do so and all this other kind of stuff. But intellectually, I know that it's better, but emotionally and physiology, or not physiology, but in terms of how it feels when I eat it, the effects that that pizza gives to me when I'm eating that cheese and drinking that pop, I'm still addicted. You know what I'm saying? So I try to eat less. I mean, I try to eat maybe once or twice, but I'm still eating the bad food. So I want to get to a point where I'm actually eliminating a lot of the bad stuff that I currently eat and just do it. So if I do eat 2, 3 times a day, and if I'm eating all natural foods, it still won't be as bad. So in terms of how it's cooked, back to the meat, is there a preference or does it matter? Meat is meat, or if you have your meat, it's best to bake it. It's not good to fry it. If you fry it, what kind of all that matter? Go ahead.
Yeah, it does matter actually. And when you fry your meat, it's okay if you have it maybe once, twice a month if you're gonna do it, to be honest.
Okay.
Because frying all the time, that again, the um, the oxidation of the oil that you use can cause issues when you're cooking with that oil in that meat, right? So you want to be mindful of not frying, every day.
Okay.
That's not good. You definitely want to bake more than you fry. Um, and if you want to use a crock pot, that's also awesome. Let
Okay.
you cut your meats up and do it in a crock pot. So yeah, it's better to bake. So if you can, do your crumbles, saute those, that type of thing. So yeah, it's definitely best to bake.
Baking is boring though sometimes. I don't know.
I get it. But you know what? There's an awesome recipe where, you take those pork chops that you had last night. If you do a double breaded technique, right?
Double
You
bread.
yeah, you coat the pork chops, let them marinate overnight in your favorite type of milk, either almond milk or buttermilk, preferably almond milk. And then when you get them out, either the next day or a few hours, you salt, pepper them, coat them with the flour, and put enough oil in your pan just to cover the bottom, and you can actually fry them in the oven.
Vitamin. That reminds me of all that shake and bake stuff I used to use a long time ago.
Yeah.
Chops again, way back in the day. So I've had pork. Pork has been a part of my life for a long time now.
So yeah, that's another way to do it aside from frying on top of the stove. And then there's air frying. Air frying is pretty healthy too because you're not using any oil at all. You're just
Right.
using the air fryer itself. So yeah, as long as you're not doing it every day, 24 hours a day, you're good. Because we're really talking about balance here. In my eating habits, I do vegan, I do vegetarian, I do macrobiotic, I do raw, I do all of it, and I eat meat. So that's how I balance my eating habits. And that's because I want variety in the things that I eat. I don't want to just eat one way. I want to eat all of it. So I incorporate all of those things in my eating habits, and in addition to having meat. So I encourage everybody to do that. Everybody should be raw one day or vegan next day, and eat raw one day, and do another day where they're doing macrobiotic, and then have a traditional meal where they've made or cooked something. I
That's
encourage everyone to do that.
so. In terms of all these different foods and everything, does fasting have a part in any of that, or do you fast?
I do. Fasting does have a part in that. And I do intermittent fasting. And I have done like a 10-day fast as well on liquids. So the reason fasting is so amazing is because of the reboot that the body goes through, literally. And it's literally the same as a reboot on a computer, for real.
Okay.
Because our bodies regenerate, our organs, our skin regenerate, our tissues regenerate. When you go through a fasting process, the toxins that have accumulated in the blood, that have accumulated in the tissues. Through fasting, you're able to allow the body to release the excess buildup of those toxins through your waste. And you allow the body to do it much more efficiently if you were just still consuming solid foods. So in the morning, I get up. I don't eat my first meal until about noon, maybe 3, depending on what I got going on. And then from 3 to 9, I consume my meals, and then I try to stop and have nothing past 10 o'clock. Depending on my day, I may not be successful in that, but I do my best, try not to have anything after 10 o'clock.
Okay. And I tried something similar with the fasting, but again, obviously I'm still a work in progress because the other night when I made the pork chops, they were so good, and I got a habit of staying up late. So I guess we'll touch upon sleep in a little while. But in terms of the fasting thing, I was up late doing some stuff, whatever, and then I don't know, it was like the pork chop was literally calling my name. It started at about 2 o'clock, and I'm like, no, I should probably just take my ass to bed, and then I wouldn't have to worry about being hungry. But at about 4 o'clock, it was like it was calling me Mr. Gilstrap at that time. So I got up morning and I warmed up a pork in my microwave oven, and I was satisfied. I knew that I told myself at that time that I wasn't going to eat again until at least 12 hours after that point. So sure enough, when I eventually got to sleep, uh, my first meal wasn't until about 4 o'clock, and I was actually cooking dinner for that next night. So
Okay.
I'm not saying it's the best thing, but in terms of the fasting, I honestly do believe the reset and how your body got kind of cleanse itself. And a lot of times when I am successful in getting past my hours of fasting, whatever, I try to tell myself when I feel my stomach growling like super, like when it's like intense, I try to tell myself that's just my body eating all the dead cells, in my body, eating the fat up. It's the lawnmower just clawing off at the fat and stuff like that. It doesn't always listen though. Like I said, at 4 in the morning, it didn't work. But I try my little techniques. So fasting is good.
Yeah, fasting is good, and your technique actually is pretty good as well, because you're programming your mind to accept what's going on in the body, and then when you place your focus elsewhere, that hunger pain actually begins to subside because you're not focusing in on it, and you're taking your mind off of it. So that's actually a good technique, Brian. That's cool.
When it's doing it, I'm like, you're doing your job. Get rid of that fat because I still got some stuff to get rid of as I'm into my stomach right now. So with you being a doctor, let's go. We got the sleep thing I want to kick it with. And then so in terms of being a doctor, what kind of patients do you normally have? Like who reaches out to you in terms of patients? And your patients, do they reach out to you in lieu of a traditional doctor, or does it supplement a traditional doctor?
Well, because I'm a certified naturopath, I can't say patients. I have to say clients.
Gotcha.
So my clients, they come to me because they have either a desire to change their health conditions, or they're in the midst of a health crisis and they need assistance. I do get those clients that have traditional medical doctors also. And I tell my clients all the time, if you need for me to be a liaison with your current medical doctor, please, I have no problem in speaking with any traditional medical doctor and working with the patient, or excuse me, working with the client and the doctor at the same time. Because as a naturopath, that's really my responsibility, to be honest with you. I'm supposed to work with my client. So if my client has a medical doctor, naturally I'm going to work with my client's medical doctor. Now, what I have found interesting is in the years that I've been doing this, I have yet to actually talk with a medical doctor in terms of what it is that I'm doing, because often clients will tell me, well, when I told my doctor I was doing such and such, my doctor said such and such. And I said, well, that's okay, let me talk to your doctor. And no, doc, let me and you just work this out, okay? We don't need to get the doctor involved. I'm
They
like, well,
don't want
that's
to be accountable, probably.
maybe so, I don't know, but I encourage my clients to let me be that liaison. If that's a service that you want me to provide, I have no problem in talking with anybody's medical doctor about what it is that I suggest to them to do, because you know I look at this as a team effort, and when you incorporate what it is that I do along with what you're doing with your medical doctor. If your medical doctor is open and willing, that person could get better a whole lot quicker because we're all on the same page working for the client's benefit. You understand what I'm saying?
It's almost
So
like it's
when
a team and you're a consultant.
absolutely, absolutely. And I believe that once things have settled and we start getting to um, a new way of doing things, because everything that's going on, I hope people realize nothing's going to go back to the way it was. I hope people realize that. And if they don't, then maybe they should pray and meditate just a bit more. Um, but that being a whole nother conversation, as a consultant, which is what I am, I work with my client, with the doctor. So once we're all on the same page, that person's health and wellness can come that much quicker and their quality of life can improve from that point. And so being in that position, I'm like, yeah, use me. I'd be more than happy to talk with anybody's medical doctor.
All right, cool. And sleep. How important is sleep?
Man, you die without sleep. That's
Oh,
like for real, for real.
okay.
And people, we take my, and I'm included in that. I take sleep for granted too sometimes. Um, the reason why sleep is so important is when you are sleep deprived, the first thing that starts to go is your ability to breathe. And what do I mean by that? Your ability to take in oxygen becomes decreased when you're not sleeping properly. So when you're sleep deprived, you're not taking in the oxygen that's necessary because you've lost the ability to properly breathe because you're not getting rest. So your shallow breathing becomes even, it increases. Your shallow breathing increases because you're sleep deprived because your body's not getting rest. So therefore your oxygen depletes. That's really huge. That can cause issues with your thinking. That can cause issues with your coordination. People say I'm 22 and I forget stuff like my grandmother. Well, maybe you need to go get some sleep. Get some sleep. So sleep is very important to your mental health as well as your physical health, and that's the reason why sleep is so important.
Okay, now, is there a certain magic number? 6 hours, 8 hours, 4 hours? I mean, does it affect certain people differently? Can some people sufficiently get, healthily get away with 5 sleep or less sometimes?
They say now, based on the studies that based on the research that I've done preliminarily, um, they say that people could get by with as little as 4 hours of sleep. Um, okay.
I don't try to. It just turns out that way. If I go to bed at 10 o'clock, I will guarantee up at about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and that's almost it for the rest of the day. So sometimes that's why I'm kind of night owling it. I'll go to bed at 2, 3, 4 ish or whatever. Oh no, hopefully a non-work night, and then I'll wake up, accordingly. But I can't seem to fit 6 hours. It seems unimaginable sometimes for me personally. So that's why I kind of wonder when I hear people say they got 6, 7, 8 hours of sleep. Laugh at them a little bit, be like I want to be asleep deep and take it from them, but I can't. So I'm just kind of wondering, is 5 hours sufficient for some people? I know it's not for me, but I'm still working on that as well, but on average.
Well, this is what I say to that. Studies have shown the body needs at least 6 hours to completely do its rest and repair functions that it does when you're in a deep REM sleep.
Okay.
My challenge is to those that get less than 6. My challenge to them is, are you getting sleep where you're
No,
napping?
no.
Or,
I'm sorry.
okay. Or are you getting your REM sleep? Because there's a difference. There's a difference between getting a quick nap in for a couple of hours and getting that deep REM sleep where when you're waking up in the morning you got lines on your face and drool on your mouth. You know what I'm
Gotcha.
saying?
Okay.
There's a very big difference. When you're in that REM state of sleep, that's when the body goes into the rest and repair functions that it needs to do for your body to regenerate your cells and etc. When you're just taking a quick nap, you're not getting that REM sleep necessarily. You're simply at rest. And there's a big difference. So this is my challenge to you. sir.
All right.
Before you go to bed, at least an hour before you go to bed, turn off all your electronics.
Okay.
No
That
electronics.
means, YouTube and Facebook and all
That
that.
mean that yeah. Ain't those on your electronic devices?
Oh, yes, if you call it that, sure.
Right, exactly. So an hour before you go to bed, no electronic devices.
Okay.
You are to either read a book, the paper book, not the electronic book.
I can't read paper. I got to do the audio thing. I'll lay down and close my eyes, put a skull cap over my eyes and have my headphones on. That's typically what I'll do. Not
Oh,
saying
okay.
the fan is like that of I don't know, a 2-year-old.
Okay. So I'll challenge you this way. So an hour before you go to bed, no electronic devices. So if you do your audiobook, do your audiobook for about 45 minutes, okay? 15 minutes prior to you sleeping, meditate,
I'm down with that.
okay? After the 15 minutes, whatever you do, whatever the rest of your nightly routine is, do that and then go to bed and see how long you sleep. Now, if you sleep past the 4 hours, then I would suggest you incorporate this routine as a habit so that
Gotcha.
your body can actually get to that REM state of sleep. Because my thing is, if you're only getting 4 hours and you really haven't gotten a deep sleep within that 4 hours, the question then becomes, are you really sleeping?
That's a good question. That's a very good question. Okay, well, I'll definitely try to incorporate that. I definitely will. I'm going to stop saying try. I'm going to say, when I say likely to do it, I'll schedule it, like Tony Robbins said. So, okay, so I'm definitely going to try to, at least an hour before I go to bed, going to get rid of my electronic devices. If I have to do some type of reading, I'll make it an audio book. The worst case, I might pick up a book, but I'll be looking at the pictures for a couple of pages and do something on my part right there. So, but I think I had like a dozen other questions and stuff like that, but I know we only scheduled this for a certain amount of time. So I do appreciate you being on the show. All this information has been very invaluable for myself. A lot of this stuff resonated, and hopefully we can have another conversation like this as well. So, in terms of yourself, are you on social media? Where can others find you?
I am. I am on Facebook, Ondria Rodgers. That's my personal Facebook page. I am also on Facebook. My business is Trinity Divine Healing. So it's Trinity, TRINITY, D as in David,
I'm going
Healing.
to put a link. I'm going to put a link in this wherever I end up posting it. So just shoot me an email with all that stuff, and I'll pop it in the link, and we'll have it
Okay.
there. So you got that anywhere else? Instagram? Are you gramming it anywhere? Are you? What's the other one? I don't know.
I am. I'm on Instagram. My daughter encouraged me to get on Instagram. She was like, Ma, you need to get on Instagram. So I'm Dr. _Ondria on Instagram.
All right, I'm gonna have all that, and I'll put it in whatever links I have and this and that. But I do appreciate all of your time. It was a pleasure speaking with you, and we got to do this again.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I definitely want your links because I want to check out the future episodes that you have on your
For
show. I
sure.
think this is awesome.
And I forgot one thing. I actually added this last 5 bonus questions. They're going to be super quick. Number 1, what's your favorite color?
Oh, purple.
It took you a long time, dude.
It
Uh,
did. I know. I had to think about it because there's so many, but purple's
you
my
got to think
favorite.
about your favorite. I asked my mother that one time, and she said her favorite color was rainbow. I thought she was being a smart ass, but that's what she told me. Number 2, do you have a pet? And if so, what's its name?
I do not have a pet. No.
I scratch that. If you had a pet, what would you name it?
If I had a pet, my pet's name would be Brody.
And what kind of a pet would Rhodey be?
It would be a husky,
A husky. Okay, cool.
Alaskan husky.
Number 3,
Say that again.
do you Amazon? Like online Amazon shopping. Are you an Amazoner?
I am with books. Yes.
Oh, she
Yes.
specified with books.
Yes.
See, I got a
Yes.
problem. You would think that I worked at Amazon because those trucks deliver shit daily to my house. So I need to work out.
Right.
4, last movie you saw in a movie theater.
It was Uncut Gems with Adam Sandler.
Oh, okay. How was that, by the way?
It was excellent. His Oscar nod was well deserved. Well
Okay,
deserved.
I'm gonna have to check that one out. And the last one, number 5. What is your favorite food?
Oh, he had to ask me that question.
I did.
I have to say it is, I think, everyone's food addiction, which is sugar.
Come on, dude. Nobody cooks a dish full of sugar. I'm talking about in its final form.
Yeah, sugar.
Just
Yeah.
sugar. You eat
It,
sugar, just
I,
okay.
no, not by the spoonfuls, but uh, potatoes, they
Okay.
turn into sugar in the blood. Pasta, carbohydrates, they turn into sugar in the
Well,
blood,
you
you
could
know.
just say pizza if that's the case. I mean, it all turns into sugar from that. But okay, so
Yeah, this is true. This is true. But that, you put a donut in front of a sister, especially if it's gluten free, a
oh
child,
wow.
look, nope.
Okay.
That I'm working with that. I am working with that, y'all. That's my work in progress.
All right. All right. Well, for your time, and I will talk to you on the next My Point of Blue.
All righty.
All right. Have
Thank
a
you,
good one.
sir. Peace and love.
All right, baby. Bye bye.